Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Classy Nerd Talk. Today we're going to talk about what's on Netflix. So the pictures up here right now that you're looking at are from the show Breaking Bad. If you haven't watched Breaking Bad, I highly recommend Breaking Bad. Breaking Bad is on Netflix. It's been on Netflix for a long time now since it's ended. There's about 7 seasons, I think. It's a show that stars Bryan Cranston as Walter White and Aaron Paul as Jesse Pinkman. Walter White, I'm going to give you like a short summary of the show. I'm not going to spoil anything, but I highly recommend it. So, Bryan Cranston, Walter White, gets diagnosed with some type of cancer, and it's really, really severe. So he realizes that he hasn't made enough money for his family. He just had a newborn kid, and he's got like a kid with disabilities, and he's got this house and just a whole bunch of bills piling up. So he decides that, the only way that he can make money is to make crystal meth. And when he does, he makes like the purest form of crystal meth you've ever seen, and they call it the blue crystal. If you look in the picture where he's sitting down and there's all that money in a warehouse, the blue totes, that's why. It explains in the show why it's blue. Now this show is very, very high drama. There's some action, but mostly, it's got, the writing is amazing. It's one of my favorite shows actually of this decade. I binge watch it. This is a show that if you get it on Netflix, you'll binge watch the crap out of it. It's kind of late with my, bringing this up, but, I think Breaking Bad deserves, that recognition that it should be watched. So if you haven't watched Breaking Bad, I highly recommend Breaking Bad. Okay, so moving on. So if you're done with Breaking Bad and you're like, oh, wow, I really want more. Well, it's kind of not as, as drug oriented. But they did come out with a side show. The lawyer in Breaking Bad is Saul Goodman. And the show did so well that they decided to do, like, Vince Gilligan, the guy that wrote the show, decided to do another, show, but like have like a spin-off or a cross, like a spin-off of it. So he came up with Better Call Saul. Better Call Saul is about a guy named Jimmy that's trying to become a good lawyer, because he takes the easy ways out. I'm not going to spoil anything for it, but there's a lot of good people. So Saul, Bob Odenkirk is the name of the guy that plays Saul Goodman. So this show is leading up to him becoming Saul Goodman in Breaking Bad. We have, we've seen a couple people from Breaking Bad. Mike Ehrmantraut, the character that plays Mike Ehrmantraut, he's in it, and a couple other people. But I'm not going to spoil anymore because there is one other cast that does come in that kind of spoils it. So, it's not based on drug oriental yet that I know of, but I'm thinking in the future it's going to show that. But the first season's on Netflix. There is a second season. It should be coming on Netflix soon. So if you can't wait that long, I would highly recommend it. You can check it out on AMC. Both shows are on AMC. But past that, what about movies? Last time I did a video, I didn't do movies, and I'm going to do every video probably about 5 movies that I've seen on Netflix that are really, really decent movies or just a fun watch. So our first one here off to the left is called Heavyweights. Heavyweights is a 1990s comedy, it's a Disney comedy. It's the creators from Mighty Ducks. If you never watched Mighty Ducks was a hockey movie back in the 90s that was about a bunch of kids. This is about a bunch of kids, but this is about a bunch of kids that go to fat camp, and they expect like all this cool stuff from fat camp, but when they get there, they find out that the camp has been sold. So, and it's sold to Ben Stiller, which is the funniest thing about this, because he also played an evil Jim Person in Dodgeball. So he wants to turn these fat kids into these fitness guru type deals. It's just pretty hilarious, because they're resisting the whole time and they're hiding stuff, and they play jokes on each other and stuff like that. But, it does have that 90s overtone of, oh, we can do anything if we achieve. So, highly recommend Heavyweights if you're just wanting a family comedy. Next movie. So the next movie has George Clooney in it. And I think his name is George Romano. So, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? Oh Brother, Where Art Thou is a Coen Brothers film. Coen Brothers did films like Fargo, Lady Killers, No Country for Old Men, and The Big Lebowski. Those are their famous ones. And Barton and Fink. What do I have to say about this film? Okay, so if you haven't seen this film, you've been living under a rock for the last 15 years, because this film deserves to be recognized. It has 2 Academy Award nominations. It's a retelling of Homer's Odyssey, but in a 1920s type deal. But it relies heavily on the Southern Christian music. It doesn't base that way, so don't be afraid of that if you're afraid of that. But also, too, it's about these 3 convicts that decide to, escape from prison, and these people come and hunt them down. But George Clooney also talks about there's treasure, and they actually go on this adventure, and they figure out, everything. It's a pretty funny comedy. It's a comedy, a drama. There's some really good stars in it. John Goodman's in it. George Clooney. John Turturro. That's his name, John Turturro. He's in it. He plays one of the people, and it's a really fun movie to watch. So if you're looking for something fun and just entertaining and very well done, I highly recommend Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? So the third movie is from the film director Quentin Tarantino. Quentin Tarantino did films like Kill Bill. He did Death Proof, he did Hateful Eight, he did Django Unchained, and it just goes on. So if you haven't watched Tarantino's films, then you probably haven't watched Pulp Fiction. But if you've watched Tarantino's films, Pulp Fiction was probably the first one you've ever watched. Someone probably was like, dude, you need to watch Pulp Fiction. So after saying that, Pulp Fiction's in the top 5 movies of mine. Top 5. Okay, so this movie is really told weird. I like how it's told, but what it is it's Tarantino has this thing where he doesn't like to tell the beginning of the movie how the beginning works. It's just he shows you clips of the whole story's going on. It'll be one story, but that's really not the beginning. That's actually the ending, and then it's oh, this story. Oh, it ties this person in. So pretty much it's just a story about a bunch of characters, and then at the end they tie all those characters into where they fit with each other. But it's a crime movie. It's got star power John Travolta, Samuel Jackson, Uma Thurman, Bruce Willis, and there's a whole bunch more, Harvey Keitel. But it's one of those stories where I've looked at myself after I've watched this film, and I'm like, you know what? I might watch this tomorrow. This is one of those films where I believe that I can just keep watching it, and it just doesn't want to stop. It's a good movie. I know a couple times when my girlfriend's like, hey, this is still in the DVD player, and I'm like, hey, don't knock on Pulp Fiction. It's a good film. It's even gotten to the point where it's very quotable movie. Me and her dad quoted a lot. So, okay, so moving on. Good Will Hunting. So Good Will Hunting is a movie that stars Matt Damon, Ben Affleck, and the late and great Robin Williams. So, if you haven't watched this, if you haven't watched this film, you need to watch this film because of a couple things. What I mean is, I hate Matt Damon. I hate to say it, I hate Matt Damon. Ben Affleck is kind of, with me, but this movie is the only movie that I accept really Matt Damon in a film. It's a drama movie, but it's about Matt Damon and Ben Affleck are friends in Boston. I think Boston. It's been a while. And Matt Damon actually works as a janitor at a college, and it's a math college kind of deal. And they put this like math equation up on the board, and Matt Damon solves it. And the teacher comes in the next day and is like, "Who solved it?" And they're like, "No one," So they come to find out that he's super smart, and they decide to like, hey, he could get a job at like doing like, changing the world with math or science or anything. And he's got some problems, like some really bad problems, probably his father hurting him, and like some of his past relationships and stuff. And where he lives is a big part of the environment that he has in here. So they hire a guy named Robin Williams' character as the therapist to try to figure out what's going on with him. It's very emotionally driven. There's a couple tearjerker scenes where you're like trying to hold it back, but most of the time you're just crying, bawling your eyes out. But also too is my favorite scene is when he sits down with Matt Damon, and Robin Williams sat down with Matt Damon on a bench, and he tells him about love, and then you find out something even better about the love thing. So if you haven't watched it and you're looking for a kind of an inspirational tearjerker, Good Will Hunting. So keeping on my 90s cheese. Okay, so here on the right is Encino Man. Encino Man was a movie from the 90s starring Brendan Fraser, Pauly Shore, and Sean Astin. Sean Astin did like films like Lord of the Rings. He played Sam. He also played Rudy and Rudy. Brendan Fraser played pretty much the Mummy series. Like that's pretty much it. He was in the Mummy series. Pauly Shore did a couple films and a couple TV episodes. He did a TV episode of Futurama where he gets unfrozen, which is kind of funny because this is pretty funny about this. So the plot of the story is Sean Astin and Pauly Shore aren't really like, popular guys, and they want to be popular. Well, they accidentally stumble upon a caveman that hasn't been unfrozen, so they decide to unfreeze him. And when he gets unfroze, he's like, all crazy, just barbaric and stuff. So they decide to teach him like this is the new world, and that you have to work with society. Well, Sean Astin's got a crush on a girl, and it ends, not as good as you think it would. What happens is, the caveman starts getting more popular than those two, which is actually pretty funny. And when I'm saying it now, but it's a cheesy film. Don't take it as like, oh, wow, this is a terrible review. No, I'm gonna say it's 90s cheese. So if you're not into cheesy films, then I don't recommend it. But there is some parts that I think are freaking hilarious, but it is 90s. So if you're not in the whole funny 90s cheesy stuff, then I don't recommend it. But if you are, it's a nostalgia thing for me. So Heavyweights is the same way. So those are the movies I picked on Netflix, and the two shows, Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. So if you like those, I highly recommend these films, and I highly recommend these shows. So once again, I like and subscribe, share. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed.